Imagine living in the most luxurious palace of the ancient world, tasting humanity's most refined dishes. But each bite could be your last. Welcome to the life of Cleopatra's food taster, the most dangerous job in Alexandria, where your survival depended on your queen's mood and her enemy's creativity. We are in 47 BC. You served the last pharaoh of Egypt in her palace of Alexandria, wonder of the ancient world with its legendary library and 140-meter lighthouse. But beneath this splendor hides the Ptolemaic dynasty, a family that has transformed assassination into a family tradition for 300 years. Cleopatra VII is not just a queen. She is a chemist, botanist, and toxicologist. She masters Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Arabic, and Latin. This terrifying intelligence allows her to correspond with poisoners throughout the Roman Empire, exchange deadly recipes with Chinese alchemists via the Silk Road, and perfect toxins that even Rome's physicians cannot identify. You didn't choose this profession, it chose you. A former freed slave, you were selected according to precise criteria. Excellent health, a developed palate capable of detecting subtle tastes, and above all, no close family who could avenge your eventual death. The selection process was ruthless. 50 candidates were tested for a week with non-lethal doses of common poisons. Only 10 survived without permanent after-effects. Among them, 5 were eliminated for revealing the tests to outsiders. 2 others were dismissed because their tongues were too sensitive. They detected poisons too easily, which would have made Cleopatra's tests useless. You are the only perfect survivor, resistant enough to survive mistakes, sensitive enough to detect dangers, discreet enough to take secrets to your grave. Your first 6 months as Cleopatra's food taster were terrifying apprenticeship under the tutelage of Apollodorus, Cleopatra's Sicilian eunuch, a former taster who survived 3 years, an absolute record. He teaches you the basics of survival. You learn to identify 47 different poisons by their taste, smell, and effect on your mucous membranes. Aconite, nicknamed Jupiter's helmet, causes tongue numbness in 30 seconds. Hemlock gives a burning sensation descending toward the stomach. Arsenic has a subtle metallic taste that only expert palates can detect. Apollodorus makes you ingest daily microdoses of toxins to develop partial resistance, a technique called Mithridatization, after King Mithridates VI, who immunized himself against his enemies this way. Your body gradually becomes a living laboratory, capable of neutralizing certain light poisons. But Apollodorus's most important lesson? Never try to save the queen. If she is poisoned, she wanted it. Your role is to die in her place when she didn't want it. Your daily survival routine is as follows. 4:30 a.m. You wake up in your sumptuous palace apartments. 3 richly decorated rooms, more luxurious than most Roman citizens' villas. Your first action. Drink an antidote mixture prepared the evening before, composed of theriac mixture of 64 ingredients, including viper flesh, mandrake root, and a secret counterpoison transmitted by previous tasters. 5 a.m. Royal kitchen inspection. You supervise 12 slave cooks, checking every ingredient, every utensil. Spices arrive sealed with 4 different stamps. Wine amphoras bear control marks changed daily. Even water is tested. Cleopatra drinks only Nile water, collected at a precise point near Memphis, transported in silver jars. 6 a.m. First test meal. You taste cold dishes first. Fruits, cheeses, bread, honey. Wait 15 minutes between each bite to detect delayed effects. Then hot dishes, meats, stews, sauces. Some poisons only reveal themselves at high temperature. 7 a.m. Cleopatra takes her breakfast. You stand beside her, watching every reaction on her face, ready to snatch food from her mouth at the slightest suspicious symptom. She eats slowly, deliberately, savoring both the taste and your visible anxiety. This routine repeats for every meal, every drink, even every perfumed pastille she puts in her mouth. The most terrifying episode of your career unfolded during winter 41 BC, during the first official dinner between Cleopatra and Mark Antony in Tarsus. Antony, paranoid after the assassinations of Pompey and Caesar, brought his personal taster, Marcus Flavius, a veteran of the Roman legions, recycled into this function. The evening was going magnificently. Cleopatra had served extraordinary dishes: peacock roasted with Indian spices, red sea lobsters, 20-year-old Chian wine. She wore a crown of white roses and jasmine, absolutely magnificent under the golden candelabras. Around midnight, with alcohol helping, Antony boasted of his precautions. "Even you, divine Cleopatra, couldn't poison me with Marcus tasting everything before me." Cleopatra's smile froze. You immediately sensed something terrible was about to happen. She delicately removed a rose from her crown and dropped it into Antony's wine cup. "Then let us drink together to our eternal alliance, my dear Antony." Antony brought the cup to his lips with confidence. At that instant, Cleopatra placed her hand on his arm. "But first, let Marcus honor this union by drinking first." Marcus Flavius emptied the cup in one gulp under the assembly's applause. In less than 3 minutes, he collapsed, seized with convulsions, blood flowing from his eyes. He died in atrocious suffering before the terrified Antony. Cleopatra calmly explained that she had soaked the rose petals in concentrated euphorbia sap, a poison she had been testing for months on condemned prisoners. Antony understood the message. No precaution could ever protect him from her. Cleopatra wasn't content with classic poisonings. Her toxicological genius expressed itself in revolutionary methods for the era. She had developed sympathetic poisons, harmless substances that became deadly upon contact with other elements. For example, eye makeup that only killed in the presence of salty sweat, or a perfume fatal only when combined with alcohol. These techniques allowed her to eliminate specific targets at banquets where she herself risked nothing. Her experiments on prisoners were methodical and horrifying. She tested action times, which poison acted in 5 minutes, which took 2 hours, which killed in 3 days, while simulating natural illness. She evaluated symptoms, which venoms caused hallucinations before death, which caused conscious paralysis, which gave the appearance of a heart attack. You sometimes witnessed these experiments in the dungeons beneath the palace. Cleopatra took detailed notes, measured pulses, timed reactions. She discussed sensations with conscious victims, like a benevolent doctor, while watching them die slowly. Most disturbing? She also tested antidotes. Some prisoners received experimental counterpoisons. Those who survived were freed and richly rewarded. This paradoxical generosity made her a goddess in the eyes of Alexandria's people. Unlike ordinary slaves, your position as royal taster grants you unique status in the palace hierarchy. You possess a personal seal, allowing you to requisition any goods in Alexandria for the queen's safety. You have a personal chest containing 50 talents of gold, fortune sufficient to buy a villa with 100 slaves. Your apartments rival those of nobles, mosaics depicting Alexander the Great's victories, personal library of 200 papyrus scrolls, private baths fed by the royal aqueduct. You have the right to wear purple, a color normally reserved for royalty, and a solid gold signet ring. But these privileges are your gilded prison. You can never leave Alexandria. You know too much about Cleopatra's methods. You cannot marry. Your wife would become a potential hostage. You cannot have close friends. They could be used to blackmail you. Even more terrifying, you know Cleopatra constantly tests you. Some accidental poisonings you suffer are actually disguised examinations. She observes your reactions, your treatment methods, your loyalty under physical torture. Every day, you prove your worth by surviving. But every day also brings your expiration date closer. You live in luxury but sleep poorly. You eat with pleasure but often vomit as precaution. You are respected but have no friends. You are Egypt's most privileged and most miserable servant. You are only Cleopatra's 7th taster in 10 years of reign. Each of your predecessors has a tragic story that palace servants whisper in darkness. Nicias, the Greek, first taster, survived 18 months before succumbing to antimony poisoning hidden in Cretan honey. Demetrios, the Syrian, lasted only 4 months. He died testing a new curare poison Cleopatra wanted to experiment with. Flavius, the Roman, lasted 7 months, but was executed for attempting to flee with state secrets. Most tragic was Keti, the Egyptian, who survived 2.5 years, absolute record. He had become so skillful that he detected poisons before even tasting them, simply by smell or visual appearance. Cleopatra almost considered him a friend, confiding her research, doubts, and projects to him. But Keti made the fatal error. He fell in love with a palace servant and tried to help her escape with him. Cleopatra discovered the plot. She didn't kill him directly. It was worse. She poisoned the servant before him with a slow poison, then forced Keti to watch her agonize for 6 hours without being able to help. Then she offered him the choice: die immediately or continue serving. Keti chose death. Apollodorus, your trainer, was the 6th. He survived 3 years by developing legendary poison resistance, but he made the mistake of aging. At 45, his reflexes diminished, his palate dulled. Cleopatra promoted him to trainer position, a poisoned honor meaning he would educate his replacements while awaiting natural or accidental death. After 8 months of service, you have developed your own survival techniques that your predecessors hadn't discovered. You created an informant network among slaves, the gardener who grows medicinal herbs, the merchant who imports exotic spices, even the executioner who knows the effects of different poisons used for executions. Each reports suspicious new ingredients arriving at the palace. You developed a micro-dosing protocol. Each morning, you voluntarily ingest tiny amounts of all common poisons to maintain your resistance. This painful and dangerous technique gives you a few extra minutes of survival in case of real poisoning. You also understood Cleopatra's psychological cycles. She tests new poisons according to a predictable calendar. After her menstruations, when she's more aggressive, before major receptions to ensure safety, and especially after disputes with her lovers, when she needs to vent anger on someone. Your most important innovation. You secretly developed personal antidotes for the 5 most probable poisons. You hide tiny vials in your clothes, shoes, even in a hollow tooth. If you detect fatal poisoning, you have 30 seconds to take the right antidote before symptoms prevent you from acting. But you know all this only delays the inevitable. Cleopatra will discover your methods, as she discovered the others. And when she grows bored with your techniques, she'll invent new ones. In this year 30 BC, Octavian's legions approach Alexandria. You sense Cleopatra's empire is ending, and with it, your role as taster. But the queen has one final project: orchestrating her own perfect death. For months, she has multiplied experiments on herself. She tests sublethal doses of different poisons to evaluate their effects on her own body. You sometimes see her staggering after her sessions, pupils dilated, speaking of colored visions or floating sensations. She has made you taste over 30 different preparations based on cobra venom, horned viper, Egyptian serpent. Each test refines her recipe. She seeks the perfect poison, quick but not immediate, to have time for one last speech, painless but spectacular, deadly but preserving her body's beauty for posterity. Your final missions are terrifying. She sends you to negotiate with snake charmers to obtain Egypt's most venomous cobras. You must test their bites on condemned prisoners, time death periods, evaluate visible pain on their faces. Most horrible. Cleopatra makes you taste her own tears and saliva after she has kissed venomous serpents. She wants to ensure that even her farewell kisses won't be deadly to her loved ones. Ultimate proof of control over her own toxicity. On August 12, 30 BC, Roman trumpets resound at Alexandria's gates. Mark Antony has committed suicide. Octavian demands immediate surrender. Cleopatra has made her final decision. She summons you to her private apartments. On a massive gold table, she has arranged her last banquet. Fruits from her personal garden, wine from her private reserve, and a basket of fresh figs supposedly sent by a faithful admirer. "My dear taster," she says with a strange smile, "here is your final service. Taste this farewell meal and ensure it is perfect." You begin with the fruits, delicious. The wine has an exquisite taste, slightly sweet. Then you open the fig basket. At the bottom, under the fruits, you discover two small royal cobras, asleep from cold, but still alive. You understand immediately. This isn't classic poisoning. It's Cleopatra's final method. The serpents will bite her directly, but she wants to ensure they're sufficiently venomous and not too aggressive. "Wake them gently," she orders, "and let the calmest one bite my breast. I must die in beauty." This is your final act as royal taster, preparing the perfect death of Egypt's last pharaoh. You manipulate the serpents with golden pincers. You evaluate their liveliness. You choose the most appropriate for her royal suicide. When everything is ready, Cleopatra hands you a purse containing 100 talents of gold. Go now. You are free. Flee Alexandria before Octavian arrives. And never forget, you served history's greatest queen. You run away, hearing behind you her final words. "Asp, my faithful servant, give me death worthy of a goddess." You survived 14 months as Cleopatra's taster, absolute record. You fled to India with your fortune, but the poisons accumulated in your body continued destroying you slowly. You died 3 years later in a Bombay palace, surrounded by luxury but gnawed from within by the toxins of antiquity's most dangerous woman. History never recorded your name, but you know you tasted death daily so that a legend might live.